Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And well, if you didn't already have enough games to play, well, guess what? Xbox Game Pass just announced 13 more games that'll be releasing for the month of September, many of which will of course be day one releases. Yeah, those backlogs are absolutely real, and I mean, Xbox Game Pass just does not stop, so we will be talking about that today. Also, is there a possibility that a beloved Nintendo mascot could be returning to the Nintendo Switch? Well, at least one person right now does have interest in doing just that, so we're going to talk about all of that as well, plus plenty more. In fact, we're going to be starting off with a game that just got announced for the Nintendo Switch as well as other platforms, being Tinykin. This is actually one of my favorite things to do on this channel, where I get to actually talk about some of these games that are going a little bit under the radar, and Tinykin right now I believe is one of those games. Now, Tinykin is a game that we did talk about on this channel a few months back, as it did get announced over at E3. It's a game that really stood out to me then because it looks like this mix of Pikmin with a 3D platformer. It has this real charming Paper Mario-esque art style to it. It's clearly inspired by Pikmin, and I think the world itself is just so interesting, taking place inside a huge house where you're playing as a miniature-like character. But yes, this is a really interesting looking 3D puzzle platformer, and I think fans might want to pay attention to this one. And well, that's kind of the good news right there, because they did reveal a new trailer today that not only shows off some new gameplay, which continues to look excellent by the way, but they also finally revealed what platforms Tinykin will be available and when it releases in summer of 2022. And that right there is the good thing, because whether you play on Xbox, PlayStation, the Nintendo Switch, or PC, you're going to be able to play this game wherever you prefer. This game's going to be available on all platforms right out of the gate. So if you are interested in Tinykin, you can go ahead and put that game on your wish list, and for that matter, I'd go ahead and recommend checking out their other game that they developed in the past, being Splasher. Yes, this is coming from the same developer, and in my opinion, Splasher is actually one of the better 2D platformers that's released in recent years. Now, unfortunately, not everything can be good news, as we got yet another delay to talk about. Yeah, that's pretty much 2021 in a nutshell. Seems like almost every game has had some kind of delay, and well, Dying Light 2 is the next big game to get an official delay, and it's now being moved into the year of 2022. So not exactly ideal if you're looking forward to playing Dying Light 2 this year, but let's just go and check out what Techland had to say about this delay. The team is steadily progressing with the production, and the game is nearing the finish line. The game is complete, and we are currently playtesting it. It is by far the biggest and the most ambitious project we've ever done. Unfortunately, we've realized for us to bring the game to the level we envision, we need more time to polish and optimize it. That is why we have decided to move the release date to February 4th of 2022. So there you have it, yet another game pushed into early 2022, and early 2022 is looking absolutely stacked. On one side of things, I'm happy that all these games are being delayed, because I prefer a finished product rather than a rushed buggy mess. We saw that last year with Cyberpunk 2077. We don't want to see that again this year with yet another big AAA game. So I'm happy that these developers are taking the time to make the game best they possibly can. Here they did say that they're going to polish and optimize it, but at the same time, I almost feel like early 2022 is too stacked by this point. It's going to be difficult finding time to play all of these great-looking games early next year, but yeah, you know, honestly, I'm not overly upset with delays like this. This is something I've talked about in the past, but we are in unprecedented times, and these developers have been faced with numerous challenges over the last year as they have worked from home. It's just a difficult time to develop these games right now, so hopefully fans do understand that. And if you are interested in Dying Light 2, this delay is only going to lead to a better end result. Now, speaking of having a hard time finding time to play all of these new games that are coming out, well, Xbox Game Pass subscribers knows all about that. I have to say, backlogs are a very real thing, and if you are an Xbox Game Pass subscriber, I mean, your backlog fills up extremely quick, and well, they're not going to help out this month at all, with 13 more games coming to Xbox Game Pass over the next half of September. What they are doing with Xbox Game Pass is absolutely crazy by this point, and I think the second half of September has several really interesting titles. In fact, let's just go and check it out. You have Phoenix Point, Astria Ascending, Flynn, Son of Crimson, I Am Fish, Skatebird, Superliminal, Origami 2, Lost Words, Sable, Subnautica Below Zero, Unsighted, Limnisgate, and then Tainted Grail Conquest. Yeah, right there's 13 new games coming to Xbox Game Pass, several of which are day one releases. I think day one releases are starting to become some of my favorite words. It's just every single month, Xbox Game Pass continues to just release some new, interesting day one releases, a lot of which turns out to be very high quality games. And I think September is really showing that this month. Now, I think for some fans out there, they're going to take a look at a list like this, and they're just kind of wondering, where's the big AAA games? And to an extent, I understand that. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of interesting games here, as I just mentioned. And I mean, we're going to get those big AAA games as well. Last month, we got Psychonauts 2, which turned out to be an excellent game. That game's actually very well possibly a Game of the Year candidate, and the fact that it launched directly into Xbox Game Pass, that is amazing when you think about it. But beyond the big AAA releases, you're also going to have months like September where you just have a lot of these really interesting titles. And I think for the month of September, it potentially has a very outstanding lineup. Truthfully, I think several of the games that are releasing throughout the month of September really stands out. And I'll kind of go over some of the games that kind of caught my eye. First off, you have Flynn, Son of Crimson. Now, this is a game that I've actually had on my wish list over on Steam for like close to a year. So I've had my eye on this game for quite a while, well before it was announced on Xbox Game Pass. It's this Metroidvania style of game with a really attractive art style to it. I'm hoping this one turns out to be as good as it looks, and, you know, with Metroidvania-style games really exploding as of recent, Flynn, Son of Crimson might be a game well worth paying attention to, as it will be releasing tomorrow on September 15th. So already you have one good-looking day one release right there. And then also on September 16th, you have Superliminal. Now, Superliminal is a game that's been out for a little while now. It's this first-person puzzle style of game. It reviewed pretty well, and I mean, fans seem to absolutely love this game. So if you like puzzle games, you have Superliminal. Then you also have Origami 2, which releases on September 17th. The thing about this game is that Origami was already a really good stealth-based game, and Origami 2 just really seems to be taking things to the next level. A lot of you all actually voted for this as being your most anticipated game for the month of September. So there's some real excitement surrounding Origami 2, and I always say this, but we do need some more of these stealth-based games, and thankfully, we have one coming directly into Xbox Game Pass here. And one cool thing about this particular release is that not only can you play it completely solo, but you can also play it cooperatively, so do keep that in mind. You also have Sable, which from an art direction is just crazy good looking. This game looks stunning in motion. Now, the big question for this game would be on whether or not it can play as good as it looks. It is an exploration style of game with various puzzles along the way, and well, I guess we're going to get to find out on September 23rd, and if you have Xbox Game Pass, you're going to be able to play that one day one. Now, another game here that kind of stands out would be Limnisgate. This is a game that I have a hard time explaining on exactly what it is. It's this innovative, strategic, first-person shooter, multiplayer style of game. They kind of describe it as having mind-bending 4D battles as you disrupt the past to change the future. I don't really know how it's going to work out. You harness several abilities, and we'll see about Limnisgate. I think it looks cool at the very least, and that one will be launching into Game Pass on September 28th. And last but not least, I think Astria Ascending looks really interesting. Xbox fans for a long time have wanted more JRPG games, and Astria Ascending is just that. This is a turn-based JRPG with a gorgeous art style, kind of mimicking that Vanillaware art style. They've always been praised for that, and we're seeing that here with Astria Ascending. It also has a writer that's worked on Final Fantasy VII Remake as well as Final Fantasy X. So you have a strong pedigree there. Now we just need to see if they can execute with Astria Ascending, but that's kind of the cool thing with Xbox Game Pass. I know I say it all the time, but it just introduces you to so many games that maybe you would have missed out on otherwise, and I think September is absolutely filled with games just like that. And that's why I'm looking at September as potentially a great overall month, depending on how these games turn out. All I'm going to say is that months like September is exactly why I'm subscribed to a service like Xbox Game Pass. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo and the possibility of bringing back Star Fox Zero over to the Nintendo Switch. Now, Star Fox Zero was this Wii U exclusive, and as we all kind of know, the Wii U wasn't exactly a resounding success, so if you didn't have the Wii U, which most people seemingly did not have the Wii U, then you more than likely have not had the chance to pick up Star Fox Zero. And this is something that we have seen Nintendo do throughout the generation. They've brought a large portion of that Wii U library over to the Switch with resounding success. Pretty much every single one of these games have sold even better on the Nintendo Switch than they did on the Wii U. So there's always this constant question, what's going to be the next Wii U port? And there's really only a few options left by this point. The two games that will immediately come to mind is Star Fox Zero and then Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now hopefully they do bring Xenoblade X as well one day, but right now it looks like Platinum Games is expressing interest in porting Star Fox Zero over to the Nintendo Switch. Now, this is thanks to an interview with Video Game Chronicles where Platinum Games did say that they were open to the idea of porting Star Fox Zero over to the Nintendo Switch. That is something important to keep in mind, though, because this is coming from Platinum Games. It's really nice to hear that they are open to the idea of bringing this game back to the Switch, but ultimately, that decision is left to Nintendo. This is a Nintendo IP at the end of the day, so it's completely up to them, but I like what I'm hearing here because I think that Star Fox Zero, I think it deserves another chance. I think for a lot of people, they look at Star Fox Zero and they see that review score and it sits at a 69 overall score on Metacritic. So a lot of people just assume that this is a bad game, but that's not actually the case. It's not necessarily a perfect game or anything like that, but there's actually quite a bit to like there, especially if you like Star Fox 64. It's very faithful to Star Fox 64, which a lot of fans really enjoyed. So the main problem with Zero wasn't necessarily with its gameplay, but rather with its control scheme. It had this weird control scheme where you had to look back and forth between your TV and then a Wii U gamepad. It just felt strange, and because of that, a lot of people came away really not liking Star Fox Zero, and that's kind of where I think a Nintendo Switch port could really help. We kind of saw this with Zelda Skyward Sword as well. That was another game that fans didn't exactly like the control scheme, and then they brought it over to the Switch, and I think a lot more people came away liking it this time around because they added a more traditional control style. So I think that Star Fox Zero would be a prime candidate to bring over to the Switch and then greatly improve on it if they can find a way to fix its controls, which I definitely think that they can do. Now, I know that there's fans out there that want Star Fox to return, and even though this wouldn't be a brand new Star Fox game, I think that because so many people just kind of missed out in this game, I think this would be a great opportunity to bring back the Star Fox IP. This game definitely has the potential as long as they can fix up its issues that they made with the Wii U. I really like this idea, and the fact that Platinum Games is already on board. Yeah, hopefully Nintendo's listening and maybe they can go ahead and decide to bring this game back. We've already seen the Switch effect with several Wii U ports, and I think that this would be a good low-risk move for the Star Fox IP. Moving on, we also need to talk about PlayStation real quick and one of their upcoming first-party PlayStation 5 games being Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 7, of course, is one of PlayStation's biggest IPs, and a lot of fans are really excited about this one and the return of campaign after, of course, you had GT Sport. But unfortunately, there's now a big question surrounding Gran Turismo 7 and whether or not this is an always online game or not. Sony did post a blog post about Gran Turismo 7 after they revealed its release date, and they went into further detail about its single-player campaign, and there at the bottom of the page, after describing all of the single-player features, it says, "These features require internet connection." The thing is, Sony hasn't went into any further detail about this. It just simply says these features require internet connection. But as you'd expect, this has led to speculation that Gran Turismo 7 indeed is an always online game, and really that's basically all we can believe right now until Sony gives an official update. And as you'd expect, fans aren't exactly too happy about this. Fans are never really too happy when it comes to always online games, when it comes to single-player campaigns, because for one, there's that question of what happens when you are disconnected, but there's also the question of longevity when it comes to games like this. Will you be able to play Gran Turismo 7 10, 20 years from now if it's an always online game? So fans, of course, are not exactly too thrilled about an announcement like this. At the same time, though, I think that we need further clarification from Sony. I'm hoping they give an update here soon on exactly what that means and whether or not this game truly is always online or not. As always, if I do hear anything about that, I will let you know as soon as that happens. And onto the poll of the day, I've always found it kind of interesting to see some fans out there really just fall in love with some of these platforms that maybe didn't exactly have a ton of success. I'm actually one of those fans. I've really enjoyed some of these platforms that have been an abysmal failure over the years, and I thought I'd go and ask you all, what game console that struggled do you think is the most underrated? And the results here was pretty interesting here, with the Sega Dreamcast coming out at top with 46% of the votes. Then you had the PlayStation Vita with 31% of the votes, and then the Nintendo Wii U at 18%. Now, I think all three of these platforms have some good things going for them, which I'll get into here in just a moment. But yeah, with the Sega Dreamcast, there's just always been this really hardcore dedicated fan base for that thing, and I completely understand why. I personally think it's one of the most underrated consoles ever. I ended up getting this thing when I was about 10 or so years old in the early 2000s, and I absolutely love that thing. It has a fantastic controller and a very underrated and underappreciated library of games. I remember really enjoying some fighting games as a kid playing the Dreamcast, such as Dead or Alive 2. Fur Fighters is a game that is very memorable to me. I know a lot of you all probably don't even know what that game is, but I really enjoyed Fur Fighters. Then there was also, of course, Sonic Adventures 2. To this day, I think Sonic fans have to know about Sonic Adventures 2, as that's one of the most beloved entries in the entire franchise. I myself personally really enjoyed the Sega Dreamcast, and definitely a very underappreciated console. This is a very close decision for me, though, as I really did enjoy the Sega Dreamcast, but I'd probably still go ahead and vote for the PlayStation Vita. Probably just because I think that it's aged really, really well. I mean, the PlayStation Vita is a premium handheld console, and especially if you have that original OLED model, games on that thing looks phenomenal all of these years later, and I think that it has a really underappreciated library of games as well. Not only can you play all these PlayStation 1 classics, there's PlayStation Portable games, but then you also have this great library of Japanese style of games, and there's plenty of good third-party games as well. I don't think that PlayStation necessarily supported the Vita the way it probably should have been, but even then, I think that it has a great library of games that's aged very, very well. And then even with the Wii U, it's a pretty decent platform, and I think that we're kind of seeing that years later, because a lot of these really good Nintendo Switch games were originally Wii U titles. They're finally seeing success now because they were always good in the first place. It was just that the platform itself didn't exactly sell well. Nonetheless, the Wii U did have good first-party games. It also has a good virtual console, and then to just kind of top it off, it also has backwards compatibility with the Wii. So I think with all three of these platforms, there's definitely reasons to like them, but I would definitely go with the Sega Dreamcast or the PlayStation Vita here. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.